Welcome everybody to this edition of Attention Talk Video. I'm your host, Attention Coach Jeff Copper, and we're here with Jackie Minetti, author of Junebug. Jackie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jeff.
As a teacher, probably as a parent, you've probably witnessed that situation in school where that ADHD child had the wiggles or something, or
Yes.
was not allowed to go out to recess because their work wasn't done. From your experience as a teacher, how did you manage that yourself in a classroom?
Well, probably the worst thing you could do to a kid with ADHD is take recess away from them. I mean, that's just absolutely counterproductive. These kids need more recess, not less recess. And the fidgeting is just part of the ADHD, the whole ADHD mix. These children are going to fidget, and you have to accept that and figure out a way to deal with it. What I found that worked for me is something I used to call in-house field trips. When I taught kindergarten, especially with the little ones, this was something that seemed to pay off in a quieter, more focused child. Depending on the situation, I would see a child start to fidget, and I'd ask the child to come up to my desk and maybe help me give out papers, or ask the child to put away some supplies. If they really seem to be exceptionally wiggly, I had an agreement with the teacher across the hall that if a child needed a little in-house field trip, they would take a message over to the teacher across the hall. And most of the time there was nothing in there except an envelope with a smiley face inside, and I kept a stack of these in my desk so that they'd always be ready. And the student really loved the idea that they were singled out to do something special. It gave them just enough of a chance to diffuse that energy, and that they'd be able to come back and get back down to work without having to tell them to sit still or do something that called a negative attention to them, which generally would make them uncomfortable and make the wiggles worse.
Well, there's as I'm learning interviewing the experts, when you think of attention deficit disorder, you think it's a deficit of attention, and we're starting to realize it's really a self-regulation issue, which explains a lot. That's why kids with ADHD can play computer games for hours on end. Their issue is stopping, not and sometimes engaging in stuff that's not as interesting. But when it comes to motor movement, to me, that's another thing that needs to be regulated. And what I'm hearing you say is that when you saw that wiggle or whatever, you either gave them a job, which made them feel important, which is always kind of good, or the in-house field trip, particularly kind of going across the hall, as a means to let them work that out. To me, that's just absolutely brilliant, because you're allowing them to get rid of that fidgeting, that excess energy, so that they can come back and focus on what they're doing. Because I can see if you've got just energy that's really kind of pent up, and you're saying, listen, you have to sit there, sit still, that's just going to make it that much harder.
Oh yes, it does. It's just simpler to deal with it when you see the wiggles just starting. Let them diffuse that energy and come back and sit down. If you're just going to harp on them, you've got to sit still. Or if you don't sit still, I'm going to take your recess away. That's like throwing gasoline on the fire.
Absolutely. I can't help but reference, we did a show, Not So Obvious Solutions, with David Gwerk, and to that, he's ADD. As we described in the video, when he was a kid, he broke couches and stuff because he was bounding all over it, and his grandmother brought him a rocking chair. And fast forward the stories, in college, he found that he could focus rocking in his rocking chair, singing his notes to the tune of like Yankee Doodle Dandy or She'll Be Coming Around the Mountain When She Comes. And that's another example of, that actually helps him focus, as opposed to have him sit there and not just sit still. He couldn't necessarily do it. So I think the in-house field trips and the job and stuff to get them to expend that energy and actually get them out during recess so they can get rid of that energy is absolutely brilliant. So your book, Junebug. You can get that off of Amazon.com?
Yes, Project Junebug. It's available on Amazon, any of the online booksellers, or through my website, www.JackieMinetti.com.
And that's Jackie, JackieMinniti.
Yes.
Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jeff.